Tonight, the worst day for stocks this year as President Trump won't rule out the possibility of a recession. The major indices all way down. The worst day for the NASDAQ since 2022. Tech stocks hit hard, especially Tesla, all as the hits keep coming on the trade war with Canada. The incoming prime minister squaring off with the president. China hitting back on agriculture products. The impact on farmers as they look with concern on their fields. Plus, the legal left turn for the Menendez brothers. The district attorney in the case now opposing resentencing, accusing them of lying. And what he said would get him to change his mind in our one-on-one interview. Plus, Laura Jarrett and what's next in the case. The spring break search, a missing American college student last seen on a beach. Her parents speaking out. The mounting questions tonight. Caught on video, the winter tornadoes hitting North Florida. The whistleblower speaking out, accusing Facebook of compromising ethics to achieve growth at all costs to expand to China. Meta trying to block her book, What She's Telling Our Stephanie Gosk. And the good news as the push to hire more pilots takes off, one of the youngest sets her sights on the wild blue yonder.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome. President Trump is calling it a period of transition. Many investors perhaps seeing something more concerning as U.S. markets extended their post-election losses today. The week starting with another major sell-off. The Dow losing nearly 900 points, shedding 2% of its value. The Nasdaq tumbling 4%, its worst day since 2022. The S&P 500 suffering its worst one-day drop since December. The market tumble getting a shove by the uncertainty and impact of Trump tariffs and the trade war they've triggered. But it's what the president didn't say when asked about the risk of a recession that is fueling much of the anxiety we're seeing tonight, along with worries over the pace of economic growth. It's where we start tonight with NBC's Brian Chung. Brian, walk us through it all.
Lester, it was the worst day for stocks this year. It's been quite a roller coaster ride, with the S&P 500 losing over 7% since President Trump's first full day in office. The sell-off accelerated as the White House escalated its trade war with Canada, Mexico, and China over recent weeks, underscoring investors' concern about tariffs dragging down the U.S. economy. The brutal day on Wall Street not aided by the president's remarks over the weekend, in which he declined to rule out a recession as a possible side effect of his tariff negotiations. Although it's worth pointing out that the U.S. economy is not showing signs of a recession at the moment, with unemployment still near multi-decade lows. Lester?
Brian, thanks. The trade war stoking some of these worries, and the market entered new territory today with fresh tariffs from Canada and China targeting the U.S. Kelly O'Donnell now with that story.
Tariff turmoil, the president's trade war, churning volatile markets and provoking countermeasures from adversaries and friends, including Canada's next Prime Minister, Mark Carney.
My government will keep our tariffs on until the Americans show us respect.
But uncertainty renews anxiety. President Trump did not appear on camera today. That's rare. But he did weigh in on the risks of recession, notably not ruling it out in a Fox News interview that aired Sunday.
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big.
More from Canada. The province of Ontario hiking energy costs with a 25% tax on electricity exported to more than 1.5 million American homes and businesses.
If the United States escalates, I will not hesitate to shut the electricity off completely.
A new economic punch from China, imposing 15% tariffs hitting the heartland. Chicken, wheat, corn, and cotton, and 10% on pork, beef, produce, dairy, and soybeans. Farmer Josh Gackle sells soybeans from his North Dakota farm, part of $13 billion in U.S. soybean exports to China.
It would be difficult for U.S. farmers to try and get through some type of long-term trade war that affects our bottom line.
President Trump says he will impose more tariffs starting Wednesday with 25% on steel and aluminum imports. Much of that supply comes from Canada. Lester?
Kelly O'Donnell, thank you. There's breaking news in the Menendez brothers case. The L.A. District Attorney withdrawing the previous DA's recommendation that the brothers be released. The new DA accusing them of lying. Our Liz Kreutz interviewed him about the case.
I'm the district attorney.
Tonight, the Los Angeles district attorney delivering yet another obstacle to the Menendez brothers and their fight for freedom after 30 years behind bars.
They do not meet the standards for resentencing. They do not meet the standards for rehabilitation. They pose an unreasonable risk of danger to the community, and the resentencing should not, therefore, be granted.
DA Nathan Hochman withdrawing his predecessor's recommendation that Eric and Lyle be resentenced, but saying the court process should continue as planned and be left up to a judge.
Our position is that they shouldn't get out of jail.
The brothers, who are currently serving life without parole for the 1989 murders of their parents, Jose and Kitty, argue they acted in self-defense after years of abuse at the hands of their father. But in a scathing 50-minute rebuke and 87-page filing, the DA cast doubt on those claims, saying the brothers have repeatedly lied and changed their story, and that they originally said they acted out of self-defense because they feared their parents were going to kill them.
Do you believe sexual abuse is a factor in them killing their parents?
I believe that they believe that sexual abuse occurred. As their own attorney acknowledged, sexual abuse does not justify killing the abuser.
Tonight, outraged Menendez family members who support the brothers ripping into the DA, saying in a statement he has blinders on to the fact that Eric and Lyle were repeatedly abused, feared for their lives, and have atoned for their actions. The DA saying he could change his recommendation if the brothers take full responsibility.
If they go ahead and sincerely and unequivocally, for the first time in 30 years, lay out that they have now lied on their entire defense and finally admit that they killed their parents in cold blood, then that will be a new insight that the court should then consider.
They've shown remarkable rehabilitation.
The brothers' attorney saying despite the DA's position, they're hopeful the judge will be on their side.
Do you still believe that Eric and Lyle will get out of prison?
Do I? Yes, absolutely. If the law's going to be followed, and if the law's followed, they should be out.
Liz, what would make the DA change his mind in this case?
Well, Lester, he says whether it's in a written declaration, a video message, or at an upcoming court hearing, he wants the brothers to publicly apologize, not just for the murders, but for what he says are a litany of lies that they told us they tried to cover up the crimes. But their family, they say that they have apologized and that they've been rehabilitated, helping countless lives while in prison. Lester.
All right, into Laura, all the twists and turns. Where does this case go from here?
Well, really, the ball is now with the judge, Lester, to decide whether to go forward with this resentencing as scheduled for later this month. It's not at all clear that he can now that the DA is backing away from this resentencing motion. The real upshot I hear is really it's going to put more pressure on Gavin Newsom, the governor there. He can grant clemency anytime he wants, Lester, and we know he's evaluating next steps.
Okay, Laura, thank you very much. Now to the desperate search for a missing U.S. college student who disappeared Thursday during a spring break trip in the Dominican Republic. Jesse Kirsch has the latest from on the ground in Punta Cana.
By air, water, and land, tonight authorities are scrambling to find Sudiksha Kunanki, a 20-year-old U.S. college student who vanished from this Dominican Republic beach more than 4 days ago.
We talked to her on Wednesday night, that is March 5th night.
Today, her father speaking to local media in Punta Cana, distraught yet grateful for what authorities are doing.
They're really helping us to find our daughter. So far, they have helped us to find in the water, but it's been 3 days. They couldn't find her in the water.
The University of Pittsburgh Jr. was spending spring break here at a Rio resort in Punta Cana when she went missing early Thursday morning. Police say surveillance video showed Kunanki and her friends going to the beach area. Eventually, Kunanki's friends came back to the hotel, but around 4:15 a.m., police believe Kunanki disappeared. Investigators revealing they've interviewed a young man who was also at the beach around that time, but officials say it's not clear if foul play was involved. In a statement, Rio Hotel says it's deeply concerned about the disappearance of one of our guests and is working closely with the local authorities, including the police and the Navy, to conduct a thorough search.
She went to the beach with several people, okay, and she did not come back, and that's a problem.
Jesse, you're outside that resort complex. What more are you hearing?
Yeah, Lester, local media reporting that Kunanki's clothing was found on the beach where there were no visible signs of violence spotted. Meanwhile, the sheriff where she's from back in Virginia says today her friends were still being held in the Dominican Republic for further interviews. Lester?
All right, Jesse Kirsch, thank you. We turn now to Florida and major damage from a strong EF2 tornado that ripped through homes, vehicles, and trees near Lake Mary. This was the scene from the road as it swept through today. We also got this view of the destruction from above. Thankfully, the system is moving offshore now. Elon Musk tonight claiming savings to taxpayers from the layoffs in the federal government workforce. But in Alabama, NBC's Gabe Gutierrez speaking to former FEMA employees who say the cuts have gone too far.
Just days after President Trump placed new limits on Elon Musk's downsizing of the federal bureaucracy, placing cabinet secretaries in charge of layoffs, Musk tonight touting cooperation.
What we do is in consultation with the cabinet secretaries and with their departments.
Did you ever think this would happen?
No. Air Force veteran and mother of two, Aileen Renault, had been working at FEMA's Center for Domestic Preparedness here in Anniston, Alabama. She helped train first responders until she was laid off on President's Day.
And I thought, well, they're going to take a scalpel to fraud, waste, and abuse, not just hack off the entire limb.
Since Inauguration Day, more than 200 FEMA employees have been cut, just 1% of the 20,000 employees in the FEMA workforce. A government watchdog report in 2022 found the agency was understaffed by 35%. Also among FEMA's layoffs, Marine Corps veteran and father of three, John Whippler.
I'm sure there are some things that do need to be cut down or removed, but does everything need to be?
Under fire for its response to Hurricane Helene last year, FEMA drew backlash from President Trump.
And FEMA's turned out to be a disaster. And I think we're going to recommend that FEMA go away. And we pay directly, we pay a percentage to the state.
But Aileen Renault has this message for the president.
Really look at what you're doing to families and individuals across America in small towns, counties, and states that voted for you, and realize that you're not draining the swamp. You are just hurting your everyday blue-collar and white-collar workers that were trying to be public servants and help you make America great again.
Also today, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that 83% of all foreign aid programs under USAID would be canceled. Lester?
Gabe Gutierrez, thank you. In 60 seconds, protests erupting after ICE arrested a Palestinian activist, as President Trump says he won't be the last. And explosions off the coast of England when this tanker and a cargo ship crashed into each other. Here in New York, the arrest of a pro-Palestinian activist by immigration agents is sparking protests. The former Columbia University student is a green card holder who was involved in demonstrations on campus. Here's Emily Aketa.
ICE off our campus now!
Tonight, anger spilling onto New York City sidewalks after federal immigration agents arrested Mahmoud Khalil, who his lawyer says is a legal permanent resident with a green card. Khalil recently finished a master's at Columbia and helped lead pro-Palestinian protests on campus. His lawyer adding he was detained on Saturday in front of his wife, a U.S. citizen who is 8 months pregnant. The Department of Homeland Security says Khalil led activities aligned to Hamas, a designated terrorist organization. But tonight, a federal judge stepping in, temporarily blocking any effort to remove Khalil from the U.S. Columbia became a flashpoint for protests against Israel last spring. We interviewed Khalil then.
We want a divestment from the Israeli occupation.
In the wake of the nationwide protests, President Trump has vowed to crack down on anti-Semitism on college campuses. Today, he called Khalil's detainment the first arrest of many to come.
Any resident alien who commits a crime is eligible for deportation.
DHS would not comment on what, if any, charges Khalil is facing. The agency's website says he's currently detained in Louisiana.
People are being disappeared under our government's watch with no recourse, no charges, and it's a massive escalation that everybody should be concerned about.
According to the Associated Press, Khalil was under investigation by a new committee at Columbia that addresses cases of alleged discrimination. Khalil telling the AP the allegations against him are mostly social media posts that I had nothing to do with.
Columbia University saying it's committed to following the law and to the freedom of speech. Khalil's lawyer is challenging his detainment. Lester?
Emily Aketa, thank you. Also tonight, new video of explosions off the coast of England. The UK Coast Guard says this fuel tanker and cargo vessel collided off the British coast of the North Sea, setting both ships on fire and sending black smoke into the air. A defense official tells NBC News that the ship was carrying fuel that was to be used by the U.S. Navy. Up next, a former Facebook employee speaking out tonight. Her warning about what she says is a growth at all costs approach. Now to an NBC News exclusive, our interview with a former director at Facebook who has written an explosive new book about her time at the company. She told our Stephanie Goss she was particularly troubled by Facebook's dealings with China.
I want to talk about something important today.
Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg says he wants Facebook to be a home for free speech.
It's time to get back to our roots around free expression.
But in her book, Careless People, a cautionary tale of power, greed, and lost idealism, former Facebook director Sarah Wynne Williams says the company was ready to abandon those principles roughly a decade ago to gain access to a critical market by appeasing the Chinese government.
They wanted a version of Facebook that could censor, that would give them control, sort of the anti-freedom of expression version of Facebook.
And to do that, did Facebook have to compromise some of its policy?
To me, it seemed like Facebook compromised almost every policy it had.
Relying on documents, emails, and her own experience, the former diplomat who helped Facebook navigate global relations with world leaders chronicles her 6 years working for the company and her own disillusionment when she says she realized all Facebook cared about was, in her words, growth at all costs.
More. They just bigger. More money, more people using the product, more.
Meta is trying to block the book's publication set for tomorrow. In a statement, the company writes, "We do not operate our services in China today. We ultimately opted not to go through with the ideas we'd explored," which Mark Zuckerberg announced in 2019. Back in 2015, Wynne Williams says Zuckerberg was desperate to break into China and actively strategized ways to make it happen. An internal document provided by Wynne Williams and reviewed by NBC News weighed the pros and cons of Facebook conducting surveillance for the Chinese government. One employee raising the concern that it could lead to death, torture, and incarceration of Facebook users in China.
There were people within Facebook that thought, oh, we might get some people killed because of this.
Right, but that's worth it. That's okay if you get into China.
In another document Wynne Williams cites in her book, Facebook staffers lay out how the company could react if their plans were leaked to the public, including drafting fake headlines they may need to respond to, like "China now has access to all Facebook user data," or "Facebook grants backdoor access to Chinese user data." NBC News has reviewed that document as well. In the end, a deal to operate in China wasn't reached. In 2017, Wynne Williams was fired. She believes it was retaliation for a sexual harassment accusation she made. A Meta spokesperson said 8 years ago, Sarah Wynne Williams was fired for poor performance and toxic behavior, and an investigation at the time determined she made misleading and unfounded allegations of harassment. The mother of three says she wrote this book knowing the reaction could be fierce.
I think people deserve to know the truth. They deserve to know what this big, powerful company is really like.
With Meta set to become even more influential in the age of artificial intelligence, that is why she says she is sounding the alarm. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News, New York.
When we come back, one of the youngest licensed pilots to ever take flight in the U.S., how she is making history and reaching new heights. That's next. Finally, she got her pilot's license before most teens get their driver's licenses. Antonia Hilton introduces us to a young aviator whose passion is just taking flight.
It's not every day that you see a 17-year-old juggle classes at Spelman College, then go soaring through the clouds.
97 golf right downwind.
And Kimora Freeland hadn't imagined this life either.
I actually wanted to be a marine biologist. I never thought about being a pilot.
At 12, her mom had the idea to put her on a wait list for a scholarship private pilot program. At 15, she got in, trading her love of sea animals for the sky. At 17, after 2 years of flights and intense studies, she made history as the youngest licensed pilot in New York State and one of the youngest black female pilots in the country.
What do people say when they find out that you fly? they're always so amazed, like, wow, like, you're so small, you fly.
The training program, United Youth Aviators, introduced her to other Black kids eager to take flight. She found community in an industry where less than 3% of pilots are Black. Did you worry about whether or not you'd fit into this industry?
No, I just knew that I wanted to create change. I knew that I could show other people that you can do this.
So she showed me a bit of what she's learned, demonstrating more mastery of this plane than I had over a car at her age.
I actually got my driver's license 4 days after my private pilot license.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yes.
She's set her sights even higher, planning to finish college in just 3 years and become a commercial pilot. Do you feel like you're making history in that moment?
I don't really think of myself as someone who made history because I feel like what I did, anyone could do it. Not everyone has this opportunity, and I'm so grateful for it. I'm so amazed every time I fly.
She might even open her own aviation school one day. But for now, she's gonna enjoy the view. Antonia Hilton, NBC News, Atlanta.
Aiming high. That's terrific. That's Nightly News for this Monday. Thank you for watching. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night. Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.